Happy New Year. Hello, everybody. Welcome to January. Welcome to 2020. It's not only a new year, it's a new decade. Where were you? January 2010. Do you remember where you were, what you were doing? I imagine the majority of you have accomplished amazing things over the last 10 years. And I am so excited to see what you're going to create over the next 10 years. It's going to be a phenomenal decade for all of us. I know it is. So hello and welcome. We are sitting January 7th today, and I just wanted to come into your inbox and on Facebook. This is actually a part of our money mastery circle, the Matrix Masters, where we maintain momentum in the matrix, and obviously we are off to a really strong start here in 2020. I wanted just to share with you a couple of tips specifically. I was asked yesterday through CBC actually, what are some of the tips to help people with their debt load, specifically the debt that we accumulate during the holidays. So with your permission, I wanted to just for a couple of minutes share some of those tips with you here. And as always, I'm open to your questions and feedback. So just post it in the comments or send me an email. But here's my thoughts for you. Now, many of you are going to be familiar with this process, but step one, whether you've amassed tons of debt. Now, the number apparently is $1,706. That's going to be the average number that adult Canadians are going to be spending or that's spent in 2019. So the first thing we need to do is with that accumulated debt, holidays or from all of 2019, whatever it looks like for you, get very, very clear on what your repayment plan is going to look like. Sit down, build a budget. It's a great time to build a budget for the year ahead. Just remember to take into account spending, your needs, your wants, your debt repayment plan, and account for savings, for sharing, which includes taxes, and investing. This is going to give you your real number. Now, before I move on to the 5 other tips on debt repayment, I just want to take a moment to speak to you about looking at that real number. For many of you, you've gone through the challenge before, you understand the exercise and some of the apprehension that many people have when looking at the reality of their finances for the first time. I just want to remind you again, when you see that number, whatever dread or apprehension might come up for you, anxiety, stress, just remember your current financial situation is simply a reflection of your past habits. That's all it is. The moment that you start changing this and being uncomfortable with going through this exercise, this is an indication that you're already in the process of changing some of that programming. So just pivot that energy of dreading the exercise into one of, I'm taking ownership, I'm working on this, I'm going to find a way. This is probably the first time for many of us this year in 2020 that we're going to get crystal clear. We're going to have absolute clarity on what needs to be created. So just a couple other tips for you here. So once you understand your budget and you understand specifically how much money you need to be applying to your debt every month to get that repaid, hopefully in 36 months, if you're part of the challenge, part of the matrix, you're going to have that debt repayment calculator so we can get you out of debt in 36 months. But once you know what that number is, automate that payment. Just set it up in your online account. Send that this much going to this credit card, this much going to this credit card, this much going to line of credit. Automate it. It's one less thing for you to have to worry about and fret about at the time that that payment comes due. Next thing, as you know, you're probably going to be familiar with this tip, but for your allowance, for the budget piece where you're deciding, okay, my highly discretionary spending, the eating out, the coffees, the lipsticks, all those small little purchases that tend to add up, those highly discretionary spends, put it together in what I call a cash allowance. So go to the bank, take that money out in cash, put the cash in your wallet, and refrain from using your debit cards or your credit cards. This is probably the number one thing that you can do to ensure you never, ever go over budget again. So there's your tip number 2. Tip number 3 is actually to take a look at all of your credit card statements. take a look at your latest ones and actually see if there are any reoccurring charges that are popping up on those statements that are no longer serving you. It might be things like magazine subscriptions or online subscriptions to old phone numbers, video producers, any sort of media content. I actually found a couple on there myself. There was actually a charge from a telephone company that had been charging me for an old line, and I completely missed it because I thought it was my business line, but it was 6 months of a personal phone charge that I'm in the process now of trying to get remunerated for. So check those, because all of those small little expenses, and for most of you that have gone through the challenge, I know a lot of you have called in, weighed in, emailed in to let me know that you have found those small little things. They could be like $25 a month, $13 a month, all the way up to $79, $100 a month. For some of you too, you might be finding that some of those subscriptions you can modify. So you might have had family subscriptions to TV shows or to radio or to music stations, whatever it might be. And now when you take a look at it, you really don't need the entire family subscription. You just need an individual subscription. So the pennies start to add up. One of my favorite money mentors, Ron Robichaud, he always says, you take care of the pennies, the dollars start to add up for you. Ka-ching. All right, what's another tip I have for you? Oh, yeah, negotiate lower interest rates with your credit cards. Your answer is always going to be no. Who is it? Wayne Gretzky that says you're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So call up your credit card company, ask them, you know what, I'm sitting at a 24, 21, whatever it is, percent interest right now on this credit card. Is there any way I could get that down? Again, you're going to get no if you don't ask, right? If you get asked, you got a 50-50. If you ask, you've got a 50-50 shot. And the last tip I have for you is that many of your credit cards, I know because you've told me this, you always keep coming back saying, you know, you're telling us not to use credit cards, but what about all the points and the rewards that I accumulate? So just a note on that, you could always look at your reward system and actually look to see if you get cash back. So if you've amassed debt, take a look at those rewards that are sitting there banked for you and take a peek and see if you can take those out in cash, take that cash and apply it to your debt load. So there's some tips for you to get over the holiday debt. But again, remember that that holiday debt, I suspect, was not just accumulated in the month of December. Usually we repeat a pattern over and over and over again. I happen to know Canadians are one of the worst right now. We're working on it, but we're one of the worst with respect to overspending habits. And I catch myself too in this, right? So there you have it. The last two pieces that I want to mention for you, everything that we've talked about right now is money management. And if you're familiar with the matrix, you know that there's two other important pieces to this puzzle. Second piece, once you get very clear on what you need to create, you need to move into money mindset. So what is the programming that's at play for you that has created 95% of your financial reality as it exists today? Right? 95% of our decisions are coming from our subconscious, and our subconscious wants to keep us in a state that it is familiar with. And step 3 is motive. So once you get this debt paid off, what does that feel like for you? Does it feel free? Does it feel safe? Does it feel secure? What is it? Right? And remember, you sit with that emotion. You sit with it so you can let the subconscious know this is what we are working towards. This is what it feels like, so that it will start making better decisions for you on your behalf. That's what I have for you. Thanks for joining. I will see you next week for a money matrix trick and tip. And again, Happy New Year. Have a phenomenal year ahead, a phenomenal decade, but we'll see each other lots in the next little while. So thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye for now.